The summer I turned 23 was supposed to be unremarkable. I had just graduated from college with a degree in graphic design, moved back into my childhood bedroom at my mom's house, and was sending out resumes to every design firm within a 50-mile radius of our small town in Pennsylvania. My days blended together in a monotonous cycle of job applications, Netflix binges, and avoiding my mother's not-so-subtle hints about my non-existent dating life. Then Marcus showed up and everything changed. I was sprawled on the living room couch on a humid Tuesday afternoon, laptop balanced on my stomach, when I heard my mom's car pull into the driveway earlier than expected. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital and usually didn't get home until after 6. It was barely 3 o'clock. The front door opened and I heard voices, two of them, my mom's familiar tone, slightly higher pitched than usual, almost nervous, and another voice, deeper, male, unfamiliar. I sat up, closing my laptop, curiosity piqued. "Jamie, honey, can you come here for a minute?" Mom called from the entryway. I patted over in my socks and faded gym shorts, running a hand through my admittedly messy brown hair. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Standing next to my mom was a guy who looked to be in his mid-20s, maybe a year or two older than me. He was tall, at least 6'2" to my 5'10", with broad shoulders that filled out a simple white t-shirt in a way that made it look anything but simple. His skin was a rich, warm brown, a few shades darker than his eyes, which were watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. His hair was cut short, neat, and he had the kind of strong jawline that made me immediately self-conscious about my own softer features. He was, in a word, beautiful, and I felt my face flush the moment that thought crossed my mind. "Jamie, this is Marcus," my mom said, her hand fluttering nervously to her necklace. "Your half-brother." The words hung in the air like smoke after a firework. I blinked once, twice. "My what?" Marcus shifted his weight, a duffel bag I hadn't noticed hanging from his shoulder. His expression remained neutral, but I caught something in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or resignation. "Can we sit down?" Mom asked, her nurse voice coming through, the one she used when she had to deliver bad news to patients' families. The next hour was a blur of revelations that rewrote my entire understanding of my family history. My father, who I'd always known as Robert Chen, the quiet man who'd left when I was 4 and died in a car accident 2 years later, had apparently had another life before my mother. A relationship with a woman named Patricia Williams, a son. Marcus. He was 25, had grown up in Baltimore, and until 6 months ago had been as unaware of my existence as I was of his. Patricia had recently passed away from cancer, and while going through her things, Marcus had found letters. Old letters from my father mentioning a new life, a new wife, a son named Jamie. "I didn't know if I should reach out," Marcus said, his voice steady but quiet. "I spent months thinking about it, then I figured, what the hell, life's too short, you know." He'd contacted my mom 3 weeks ago. They'd been talking, video chatting, and she'd invited him to stay with us for the summer while he figured out his next steps. He'd been working construction in Baltimore but wanted a fresh start somewhere new. "I should have told you sooner," Mom said to me, guilt written across her face. "I just didn't know how to bring it up, and I wanted to make sure Marcus was serious about connecting before I turned your world upside down." I looked between them, my mom's apologetic eyes and Marcus's cautious gaze, and felt a strange cocktail of emotions. Shock, obviously, confusion, a little bit of anger at being kept in the dark, but also something else, something that felt almost like excitement, though I couldn't quite place why. "So you're just staying here?" I asked Marcus. "If that's okay with you," he replied. "Your mom offered the guest room. I'm not trying to impose or anything. I can find somewhere else if this is too weird." "No," I said quickly, surprising myself. "No, it's fine. I mean, it's weird, yeah, but it's fine. You're family." The word felt strange in my mouth. Family. This stranger, this absurdly attractive stranger, was my brother, half-brother technically, but still. Marcus's shoulders relaxed slightly and a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Thanks, man, I appreciate it." That night, after Marcus had moved his things into the guest room across the hall from mine, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I'd known I was gay since I was 16, had come out to my mom when I was 18, and she'd been nothing but supportive. But I'd never had any siblings, never had to navigate that particular family dynamic. And now I had a brother, a ridiculously good-looking brother who was going to be living down the hall from me all summer. This was going to be interesting. The first few days were awkward in that particular way that comes from forced proximity with a stranger. Marcus and I circled each other like cautious cats, polite and distant. He'd help with dishes after dinner, we'd exchange pleasantries in the hallway, but there was a wall between us. The wall of 20+ years of separate lives. My mom worked long shifts, which meant Marcus and I were often alone in the house together. I tried to focus on my job search, but I found myself distracted by the sounds of him moving around. The shower running in the morning, the refrigerator opening and closing, the heavy footfalls of someone much larger than me moving through the house. It was on the fourth day that things started to shift. I was in the kitchen making coffee around 10 in the morning when Marcus came down in basketball shorts and a tank top, clearly having just finished a workout in the garage where Mom kept her rarely used exercise equipment. "Morning," he said, grabbing a glass from the cabinet. "Mind if I steal some of that coffee?" "Go for it," I replied, gesturing to the pot. "How'd you sleep?" "Good, that guest bed is way more comfortable than the futon I had in Baltimore." He poured himself a cup, added 2 sugars and leaned against the counter. "So what do people do for fun around here?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Define fun." "There's a movie theater that shows films 6 months after they've come out, a bowling alley that smells like cigarettes and regret, and a bar that's been raided twice in the past year for serving minors." Marcus chuckled, a deep, warm sound that did things to my chest that I immediately tried to ignore. "Sounds charming." "It's soul-crushing," I said honestly. "I spent 4 years in Philadelphia for college, and coming back here feels like stepping backward through time." "Why'd you come back?" I shrugged, sipping my coffee. "Money, mostly. Couldn't afford to stay in the city without a job lined up, and most entry-level design positions don't pay enough to cover Philly rent. I figured I'd come back here for a few months, save some money, and then move back once I had something solid." "That makes sense." Marcus studied me over his coffee cup. "What kind of design do you do?" "Graphic design, branding, logos, marketing materials, that kind of thing. I actually enjoy it, which feels like a minor miracle given that most people my age seem to hate their chosen career paths." "You got a portfolio or whatever?" "Yeah, I want to see it." His face lit up with genuine interest. "Sure." We moved to the living room and I opened my laptop, pulling up my online portfolio. Marcus sat beside me on the couch, closer than I expected, and I could smell his deodorant mixed with sweat from his workout. It was distracting in a way that made me mentally scold myself. "He's your brother, get it together." But as I walked him through my projects, explaining the concepts behind different designs, I found myself relaxing. Marcus asked good questions, seemed genuinely interested, and had thoughtful observations about color choices and typography that surprised me. "This one's my favorite," he said, pointing to a logo I'd designed for a fictional coffee company as part of my senior project. "The way you incorporated the coffee bean into the C is subtle but effective." "Thanks," I said, genuinely pleased. "That one took me forever to get right. I must have gone through 50 iterations." "It shows in a good way." He leaned back, draining the last of his coffee. "You're really talented, Jamie. Some company's going to be lucky to have you." The compliment hit differently than I expected. Maybe because it came from someone who had no obligation to be nice to me, someone who was essentially still a stranger despite our shared DNA. "What about you?" I asked, closing my laptop. "What do you want to do? You said you were doing construction in Baltimore." "Yeah, mostly just to pay the bills. I was helping take care of my mom for the last 2 years, so I needed something flexible." His expression shifted, a shadow passing over his face. "She had stage 4 breast cancer. We knew it was terminal, but we thought we'd have more time." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "That must have been really hard." It was. He was quiet for a moment, staring at his empty coffee cup. "But she was tough right up until the end. Never complained, never felt sorry for herself. She always said life was too short for self-pity." "She sounds like she was an amazing person." "She was." Marcus looked up at me, and there was a vulnerability in his eyes that made my chest tight. "She would have liked you, I think. She always wanted me to have siblings, used to joke about how I was too much for just one parent to handle." I smiled. "My mom used to say she was grateful I was an easy kid because she didn't know how she would have managed more than one on her own." Guess we're both only children who aren't only children anymore. Weird, right? So weird, he agreed, but he was smiling now. That conversation was a turning point. After that, the awkwardness between us began to dissolve. We fell into an easy rhythm over the following weeks. Mornings, we'd have coffee together and talk about everything and nothing. Marcus would work out while I job searched. In the afternoons, we'd sometimes drive into town, hitting the sad movie theater or grabbing lunch at the one decent diner. I learned that Marcus loved old kung fu movies, could quote The Princess Bride from memory, and had a weakness for terrible reality TV. He learned that I was obsessed with true crime podcasts, couldn't cook to save my life, and had an encyclopedic knowledge of obscure indie bands from the 2010s. We were becoming friends, real friends, and I kept reminding myself that that's all we could ever be, no matter how my pulse quickened when he laughed at one of my jokes or how I caught myself staring at him when he wasn't looking. He was my brother, that was a line I couldn't cross, not even in my thoughts. But thoughts, I was learning, were hard to control. It was mid-July when things started to get complicated. We'd fallen into a habit of staying up late together after my mom went to bed for her early morning shift. She'd usually turn in around 9:30, and Marcus and I would claim the living room, sprawling on opposite ends of the couch with beers from my mom's fridge and whatever movie or show we'd decided on that night. This particular night, we were on our second beer each, watching some forgettable action movie when Marcus shifted, drawing my attention. "Can I ask you something?" he said, mooting the TV. "Sure." He was picking at the label on his beer bottle, not quite meeting my eyes. "Your mom mentioned you're gay. Is it cool if we talk about that, or is it weird?" I felt my defenses rise slightly, years of being interrogated about my sexuality making me wary. But this was Marcus, and he'd been nothing but accepting since he'd arrived. "It's not weird," I said carefully. "What do you want to know?" "I guess I'm just curious, when did you know?" I took a sip of my beer, considering. I think I always kind of knew, but I didn't have the language for it until I was around 15 or 16. There was this guy in my high school and I just couldn't stop thinking about him. That's when it clicked. "Did you tell him?" "God, no," I laughed. "He was straight, and this is small-town Pennsylvania. Coming out in high school here wasn't exactly safe. I waited until college." "That must have been lonely." The empathy in his voice surprised me. "It was," I admitted. "But it also made leaving for Philadelphia feel like an escape. I got to be myself there in a way I never could here." Marcus nodded slowly, still not quite looking at me. "I came out when I was 22, he said quietly. The words hung in the air between us. I froze, beer bottle halfway to my lips. "You're gay." "Bye, actually." He finally met my eyes, and there was something defensive in his expression, like he was bracing for judgment. "I told my mom about a year before she died. She was cool with it, but I haven't really told many people." My mind was reeling. Marcus was bi. My half-brother, the guy I'd been trying very hard not to find attractive, liked men. "That's wow," I said, aware I sounded like an idiot. "I mean, that's cool, thanks for telling me." "Yeah, well, you're family, and you get it." He took a long drink of his beer. "I dated girls all through high school and most of college, didn't really accept that I was attracted to guys until I was in my 20s. First time I kissed a guy, it was like something clicked into place." "I know exactly what you mean," I said, finding my voice again. "It's like you suddenly understand what everyone's been talking about all along." "Exactly," he smiled, and it was genuine, relieved. "I've had a few boyfriends, nothing too serious. What about you, anyone special?" I shook my head. "I dated a guy named Connor for about a year in college. It ended badly. He cheated on me with his study partner and I found out via Instagram. Super classy." "Ouch." "Yeah, since then I've been, I don't know, cautious, I guess. It's hard to trust people after something like that." I paused, then added with a self-deprecating laugh, "Plus, the dating pool in this town is non-existent. Pretty sure I'm one of maybe 5 out gay people in a 20-mile radius." "That's rough." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "I haven't dated anyone since I moved here, haven't really tried, to be honest. I've been too focused on figuring out my next move." "What is your next move? Are you thinking about staying here?" He shrugged. "I don't know. I've been applying to construction jobs in the area, some in Pittsburgh too. I like it here actually, it's quiet. different from Baltimore, and your mom's been really great. It's nice having family again." The way he said family made something twist in my chest, because that's what we were, family. The thing I had to keep reminding myself of every time I noticed the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders or how his laugh made me smile involuntarily. "I'm glad you came," I said honestly. "It's been really nice getting to know you." "Yeah," he said, his eyes holding mine for a moment longer than necessary. "It really has." Something in the air shifted, became charged with an energy I didn't want to name. I looked away first, taking a too large gulp of beer and nearly choking. "You okay?" Marcus asked, alarmed. "Fine," I coughed. "Wrong pipe." He laughed, and the tension broke, but it didn't disappear entirely. It lingered around the edges of our conversation for the rest of the night, like smoke I couldn't quite wave away. When I finally went to bed around 1 in the morning, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and trying not to think about the fact that Marcus was in the room across the hall, that he liked men, that he was single. That none of it mattered because he was my brother. I repeated it to myself like a mantra until I finally fell asleep. He's my brother, he's my brother, he's my brother. The knowledge that Marcus was bi changed things in ways I didn't want to acknowledge. It shouldn't have mattered. It didn't matter, but I found myself more aware of him than ever, reading into casual touches and lingering glances that probably meant nothing. We'd started working out together in the mornings, Marcus teaching me proper form for weights I'd always been intimidated by at the gym. It meant spending a lot of time in close proximity, his hands adjusting my posture, his voice close to my ear as he counted reps. "Come on, you got this," he'd say, standing behind me as I struggled through another set of squats. "2 more, 1 more, there you go." And when I'd finish, muscles shaking, he'd clap me on the shoulder with a grin that made my stomach flip. I told myself I was imagining the way his touch sometimes lingered. I told myself I was projecting my own confused feelings onto innocent interactions. I told myself a lot of things. But then came the night that made me question everything. It was a Friday and my mom was working a double shift at the hospital. Marcus and I had ordered pizza and were on our 3rd beer each, a little buzzed, laughing at some ridiculous comedy special on Netflix. "I can't believe you think this is funny," I said, gesturing at the screen where a comedian was doing an overly physical bit about airports. "What, this is comedy gold," Marcus protested. "This is what people who peaked in high school think is funny." He grabbed one of the couch pillows and threw it at me. I threw it back. Before I knew it, we were in a full-on pillow fight, both of us laughing like kids. Wrestling for dominance over the pile of decorative pillows my mom insisted on keeping on the couch. Marcus was stronger, unsurprisingly, and he managed to pin me against the couch cushions, his body pressed against mine, both of us breathing hard from exertion and laughter. And then we both went very still. His face was inches from mine. I could count his eyelashes, see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, feel the heat radiating from his body. His gaze dropped to my lips just for a second, but it was enough. The air between us felt electric, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. "Jamie," he said softly, and there was a question in his voice. I knew what the question was. I knew what the right answer was supposed to be. But I couldn't make myself say it. Instead, I stayed frozen beneath him, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could feel it. The moment stretched out, impossibly long, impossibly tense. Then Marcus cleared his throat and pulled back, running a hand over his hair. "Sorry," he muttered, "got carried away." "It's fine," I said, sitting up, my voice not quite steady. "We're both a little drunk." "Yeah," he agreed, but he wouldn't look at me. I should probably call it a night. He stood up and I watched him leave, listened to his footsteps on the stairs, the click of his bedroom door closing. I sat on the couch for a long time after that, my mind spinning. What had just happened? Had I imagined the way he looked at me, the charge in the air between us? And more importantly, what did it mean that I'd wanted him to kiss me? I went to bed feeling sick with confusion and guilt. He was my brother. Even if we'd only known each other a few weeks, even if we'd grown up apart, that's what he was. There were lines you didn't cross, and this was one of them. But lying in my bed, staring at the wall that separated my room from his, I couldn't stop thinking about how it had felt to be pressed against him, couldn't stop wondering what would have happened if neither of us had pulled away. I didn't see Marcus the next morning. He was already gone when I woke up, a note on the kitchen counter saying he'd gone for a drive to clear his head. He didn't come back until late afternoon, and when he did, he was distant, polite but closed off. The easy friendship we'd built seemed to have cracked, and I didn't know how to fix it. "Are we okay?" I finally asked him that evening, finding him on the back porch staring at the sunset. He glanced at me, then back at the horizon. "Yeah, man, we're good. Because last night we had too much to drink and got stupid," he interrupted. "Let's just forget about it." "Okay," I said, even though I knew I wouldn't be able to forget about it, "if that's what you want." "It is." But the way he said it, the tightness in his jaw, made me think it wasn't what he wanted at all. The next few days were torture. Marcus and I maintained a careful distance, interacting only when necessary, keeping our conversations surface level and brief. My mom noticed the change but didn't comment, though I caught her watching us with concern. I threw myself into job applications with renewed vigor, desperate for any distraction. And then, miraculously, I got a call back. A design firm in Pittsburgh wanted to interview me. It was 2 hours away but commutable if I got an offer. "That's amazing, honey," Mom said when I told her at dinner. "When's the interview?" "Next Thursday. I'll have to drive up the day before and stay at a hotel." "I'm proud of you, Jamie," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Marcus, sitting across from me, offered a small smile. "Congratulations, they'd be lucky to have you." "Thanks," I said, meeting his eyes for the first time in days. After dinner, I escaped to my room, trying to prepare for the interview, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept wandering back to Marcus, to the careful way we were moving around each other, to the tension that had replaced our easy friendship. There was a knock on my door around 10. "Come in," I called. Marcus pushed the door open, hovering in the doorway. "Can we talk?" My heart rate kicked up immediately. "Sure." He came in, closing the door behind him, and sat on the edge of my bed while I swiveled in my desk chair to face him. "I've been an asshole," he said without preamble. "I've been avoiding you, and that's not fair." "It's okay." "It's not okay," he ran a hand over his face, looking exhausted. "The other night when we were wrestling around, he stopped, jaw clenching. "I need to be honest with you about something." My mouth went dry. "Okay. I'm attracted to you." The words hung in the air between us, impossible to take back. I stared at him, unable to form a response. "I know it's fucked up," he continued, his voice low and strained. "Believe me, I know you're my brother. That should be enough to stop whatever this is I'm feeling, but it's not. And I've been trying to deal with it on my own, trying to just push it down and pretend it doesn't exist, but I can't. I can't keep pretending that being around you doesn't affect me." "Marcus, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "I don't expect you to feel the same way. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know why I've been so weird. I'm trying to do the right thing here, trying to keep my distance so I don't fuck this up, but I also don't want to lose the friendship we've built." I was shaking. My whole body was trembling with the weight of what he'd just admitted, with the knowledge of what I was about to say. "You're not the only one," I whispered. His head snapped up, eyes wide. "What?" "You're not the only one feeling this." The words tumbled out of me in a rush. "I've been attracted to you since the day you showed up. I've been trying so hard to ignore it, to be a good brother, to not let it mean anything, but it does mean something, and I don't know what to do about it." Marcus stood up abruptly, packing my small room like a caged animal. "Fuck. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," he stopped, turning to face me. "This is so messed up, Jamie. We shouldn't." "I know. You're my brother's half-brother," I said, then immediately felt guilty for the distinction. "But yeah, I know, it doesn't matter if we just met, it doesn't matter if we didn't grow up together, you're family." "Right," he laughed, a bitter sound. "Family." We stood there in silence, the truth hanging between us, undeniable and impossible. "What do we do?" I finally asked. "I don't know." Marcus sat back down on the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "The right thing would be to keep our distance, for me to move out maybe." The thought sent a spike of panic through me. "I don't want you to leave." "I don't want to leave either." He looked up at me and the raw emotion in his eyes made my chest ache. But I also don't trust myself around you, not now that I know you feel the same way. We're adults, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We can control ourselves. Can we? The question hung in the air, unanswered because I wasn't sure I could, not anymore. Maybe we need to set boundaries, I suggested. No more late nights alone together, no more beer, we keep things appropriate. Appropriate, Marcus repeated like he was testing the word. Yeah, okay, we can do that. But neither of us moved, neither of us left. We just sat there looking at each other, the air between us heavy with everything we couldn't say, couldn't do, couldn't have. This is going to be really hard, isn't it? I said. Yeah, Marcus agreed, it really is. The boundaries we set lasted exactly 3 days. For those 3 days, we were models of propriety. We were polite, distant, careful not to be alone together for more than a few minutes. When my mom was home, we could hide behind normal family dynamics. When she wasn't, we stayed in separate rooms. It was miserable. I missed him, missed our late-night conversations, our easy laughter, the way he'd explain the finer points of action movies with the seriousness of a film professor. I missed my friend. And on the third night, when my mom was working another late shift, I found myself standing outside Marcus's door around 11 p.m., fist raised to knock before I could talk myself out of it. He opened the door looking tired, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and his expression when he saw me was complicated. Hey, I said. Hey. Can we talk? He stepped aside to let me in. His room was neat, almost militarily so, just a few personal items scattered around. His laptop was open on the desk, some action movie paused on the screen. I miss you, I said, deciding to just be honest. I miss being your friend. I miss you too, he admitted. This is stupid, we're adults, we can control ourselves, there's no reason we can't just hang out like we used to. Marcus looked skeptical. You think we can do that? Just pretend we didn't admit what we admitted. I think we can try, because the alternative is you moving out or us being miserable strangers living in the same house, and I don't want either of those things. He considered this, then nodded slowly. Okay, let's try. We ended up in the living room like old times, though I made sure to sit in the armchair instead of on the couch with him. We put on a movie, kept the conversation light, and for a while it almost felt normal again. Almost. But I was hyper-aware of his every movement, every laugh, every glance in my direction. And when our eyes met, there was a charge there that hadn't existed before the truth came out. I'm going to get another beer, Marcus announced, standing up. Want one? We said no more beer together, I reminded him. One beer isn't going to kill us, Jamie, we're not that weak. Famous last words. 2 beers turned into 3, which turned into 4. The careful distance we'd maintained started to dissolve. I moved from the armchair to the couch. Marcus's arm ended up along the back of the cushions, not quite touching me but close enough that I could feel the heat of it. Remember when you asked me what I wanted to do with my life? Marcus said, his voice a little fuzzy at the edges from the alcohol. I don't think I gave you a real answer. What's the real answer? He was quiet for a long moment. I want to build things, not just houses or buildings, but, I don't know, things that last, things that matter. My mom used to say I was good with my hands, that I could make anything. You are good with your hands, I said, then immediately felt my face heat up as I realized how that sounded. Marcus laughed, a low, warm sound. Thanks. I know what you meant. His hand, which had been resting on the back of the couch, dropped to my shoulder. It was a casual gesture, brotherly even, but it sent electricity through me. You overthink things, you know that? It's a blessing and a curse. Mostly a curse, he teased, and I shoved at him lightly. Which was a mistake because he shoved back and then we were wrestling again like we had that first night, except this time we both knew exactly what we were doing. This time, when Marcus pinned me against the couch, when his body pressed against mine and his face hovered inches away, neither of us pretended it was an accident. We should stop, he breathed. Yeah, I agreed. Neither of us moved. Jamie, he said, my name almost a groan, tell me to stop. I can't. And then he was kissing me. It wasn't gentle, it was desperate, hungry, months of tension pouring out in a single moment. His hands were in my hair, mine clutching at his shoulders, and it was everything I'd been trying not to imagine and so much better than any fantasy. We broke apart, both breathing hard, and reality crashed back in. Fuck, Marcus said, pulling away from me. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Marcus! We can't do this, he stood up, packing. We can't, this is. I know. Do you? He spun to face me. Do you understand how fucked up this is? You're my brother, Jamie, my brother. Half-brother, I said again weakly. It doesn't matter, it's still wrong. Society says it's wrong. The law in some places says it's wrong. This is, he broke off, running both hands through his hair. We have to stop this, right now, before it goes any further. I stood up, my legs unsteady. You're right, you're absolutely right. I should move out. No, I said quickly, please don't, we made a mistake, we had too much to drink, it won't happen again. How can you be sure? Because I'm not going to let it, I said with more conviction than I felt. We'll go back to boundaries, real boundaries this time, no beer, no late nights alone, we'll stick to it. Marcus looked at me for a long moment and I could see the war happening behind his eyes. Okay, he finally said, but if this happens again. It won't. He nodded, not looking convinced. I'm going to bed. Marcus, wait. But he was already leaving and I didn't try to stop him. I sat back down on the couch, touching my lips where he'd kissed me, feeling like I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. The next morning I woke up to my phone ringing, my mom. Hey honey, I'm going to be at the hospital for a few more hours, she said. We had a rush of patients from a pileup on the highway. Can you check on Marcus for me? He seemed off when I talked to him last night. Sure, Mom. I found Marcus in the kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee like it held the secrets of the universe. He looked up when I walked in and the expression on his face was pure misery. We need to talk, he said. I know. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared so many meals and conversations over the past 6 weeks. Now it felt like a barrier between us. I think I should tell you something, Marcus began, about why I really came here. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He took a deep breath. When I found those letters from our dad, when I learned about you, I spent weeks looking you up online. I found your Instagram, your Facebook, your portfolio website. I saw pictures of you, read your posts, and he paused, looking ashamed. I was attracted to you before we even met. I sat back in my chair processing this. That's why you came here. No, he said quickly. That's not why I came. I came because I wanted family, because I was lonely after my mom died, because I needed a fresh start. But I knew from the beginning that I was attracted to you, and I told myself it wouldn't matter. I told myself that once we met in person, once I got to know you as my brother, those feelings would disappear. But they didn't. They got worse, he laughed bitterly. Because you're not just attractive, Jamie, you're funny and smart and kind, and getting to know you has been amazing. You're my best friend, you're my brother, and I want you in ways I shouldn't, and I hate myself for it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry that he'd come here knowing he was attracted to me. But another part understood completely, because hadn't I been doing the same thing, trying to force my feelings into appropriate boxes where they didn't fit? I'm not going to judge you for feelings you can't control, I finally said. God knows I can't control mine either. So what do we do? I thought about it for a long moment. I think we need to really examine what's happening here. We're not siblings in the traditional sense. We didn't grow up together. We don't have shared childhood memories. We met as adults. We share a father. A father I barely remember and you barely knew. Marcus, I'm not saying what we're feeling is right or wrong. I'm saying it's complicated. That's an understatement. Do you want to know what I think? I asked. I think we're both trying to force ourselves into roles that don't fit. We're trying to be siblings because that's what society says we should be. But the truth is, we're two adults who met under unusual circumstances and developed feelings for each other. The biology is almost irrelevant. Almost, Marcus repeated, but not completely. We are related, Jamie, that's a fact. A fact that wouldn't matter if we'd met any other way. If we'd met at a bar or through friends, we wouldn't think twice about this. But we didn't meet any other way, we met as family. We sat in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on both of us. My interview is on Thursday, I said, changing the subject. I'm going to drive to Pittsburgh on Wednesday, stay overnight, maybe some distance will help us both clear our heads. Marcus nodded, yeah, that's probably a good idea. But when Wednesday came and I was packing my overnight bag, Marcus appeared in my doorway. Be safe driving, he said, and good luck with the interview, you're going to kill it. Thanks, I zipped up my bag then hesitated. Marcus, I meant what I said about you being my best friend, whatever else is happening, that's real. For me too, he stepped into the room and for a moment I thought he was going to hug me but he stopped a few feet away. Jamie, Don't, I interrupted gently, let's get through this week, we'll figure the rest out later. The drive to Pittsburgh took 2 hours and I spent most of it replaying the past 6 weeks in my head. How had I gotten here? How had a simple family reunion turned into this mess of complicated feelings and crossed lines? The hotel was cheap but clean and I spent the evening preparing for my interview, going over my portfolio, practicing answers to common questions, but my mind kept wandering back to Marcus, to the kiss, to the confession, to the impossible situation we found ourselves in. Around 10 p.m. my phone buzzed with a text. Marcus, how's Pittsburgh? Me good, hotel is decent, I'm as ready as I'll ever be for tomorrow. Marcus, you got this, they'd be crazy not to hire you. Me thanks, what are you up to? Marcus, watching some old kung fu movies, it's not the same without you making fun of the terrible dubbing. I smiled despite myself. Me, the dubbing is terrible. Marcus, that's what makes it great. We texted back and forth for a while, keeping it light, and it felt good. Normal, like maybe we could navigate this after all. But then he sent, I miss you. 2 simple words that complicated everything again. Me, I miss you too. Marcus, this is harder than I thought it would be, not having you around, I mean. Me, it's only been a few hours. Marcus, I know that's the problem. I stared at my phone, trying to figure out how to respond. Me, we need to have a real conversation about this when I get back. Marcus, I know, I'm scared of what that conversation is going to be. Me too. The interview the next day went surprisingly well. The firm was small but dynamic and they seemed genuinely impressed with my portfolio. By the time I left, they'd hinted strongly that I'd be receiving an offer within the week. I should have been ecstatic. This was what I'd been working toward, what I'd been hopping for. A real job in my field, a chance to start my career, enough money to eventually move out and start my adult life. But all I could think about was what it would mean, 2 hours from home, 2 hours from Marcus. I drove back that afternoon, arriving home around 5. My mom was at work and Marcus's truck was in the driveway. I found him on the back porch, sketching something in a notebook. He looked up when he heard the door and his face lit up in a way that made my heart hurt. How'd it go? He asked, setting down his pencil. Really well, I think they're going to offer me the job. Jamie, that's amazing. He stood up like he was going to hug me, then caught himself, settling for a slightly awkward high five instead. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, I sat down in the chair next to him. What are you drawing? Just messing around. I used to sketch building designs when I was younger. My mom thought I should be an architect, but I never finished college. He turned the notebook so I could see a detailed drawing of a house with clean lines and interesting angles. Marcus, this is really good. He shrugged, looking embarrassed. It's just for fun. Have you ever thought about going back to school, studying architecture or design? I'm 25, feels like I missed the boat on that. That's bullshit and you know it, 25 is young. He smiled at that, maybe. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and it felt so normal, so right, that it almost made me forget about the complicated tangle of feelings between us. We need to have that conversation, Marcus said quietly. I know. My mom's working overnight tonight, right? Yeah. So we have time to really talk about this, no interruptions. My pulse quickened, okay. We ordered Chinese food for dinner and sat at the kitchen table, pushing lo mein around our plates more than eating it. The tension between us was palpable, a living thing that filled the space. I've been thinking a lot, Marcus finally said, about what you said, about how we're not siblings in the traditional sense. And And I think you might be right. We're biologically related, yeah, but we don't have a sibling relationship. We have a friendship that developed into something more. The fact that we share DNA is almost incidental. So what are you saying? He set down his fork, meeting my eyes. I'm saying that if we decide to pursue this, if we decide that what we're feeling is real and worth exploring, I don't think it makes us bad people. Unconventional, maybe, complicated, definitely, but not bad. A lot of people would disagree with that. A lot of people aren't us? He reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, I took his hand. The contact sent electricity through me. I'm not saying this is easy, I'm not saying there won't be consequences, but I also can't keep pretending I don't feel what I feel. Neither can I admitted. So what do we do? I squeezed his hand, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump. I think we need to be honest about what we want, really honest. I want you, Marcus said simply. I want to see where this goes, I want to stop fighting it. Even knowing how complicated it will be, even knowing we couldn't tell most people the truth about our relationship. Even knowing all of that. I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment where I had to decide what I was willing to risk. I want that too, I said. I want to try. The smile that spread across Marcus's face was beautiful and terrifying all at once. He stood up, pulling me up with him, and this time when he kissed me, it wasn't desperate or frantic. It was slow, deliberate, full of promise. We should probably set some ground rules, I said when we broke apart. Ground rules. We need to be smart about this. Your mom can't know. Not yet, maybe not ever. We need to be careful. Agreed. What else? We take this slow. Just because we're deciding to explore this doesn't mean we rush into anything. We figure it out as we go. I can do slow, Marcus said, but the way he was looking at me suggested that slow was going to be a challenge for both of us. We spent the rest of the evening on the couch, talking about what this new development meant, setting boundaries that felt more realistic than the ones we'd tried before. No intimacy when my mom was home. We'd keep sleeping in separate rooms for now. We'd be careful about how we acted around others. It felt surreal negotiating the terms of a relationship with my half-brother, but it also felt right in a way I couldn't fully explain. When we finally said goodnight around midnight, Marcus kissed me again at the top of the stairs, soft and sweet, and I went to bed with a smile on my face for the first time in weeks. The next few weeks were some of the best and hardest of my life. On the surface, nothing changed. Marcus and I still did all the things we'd done before, worked out in the mornings, grabbed lunch in town, watched movies in the evening. But now there were stolen kisses when my mom wasn't looking, hands held under the table at dinner, meaningful glances across the room that made my heart race. It was exciting and terrifying in equal measure. I got the job offer from the Pittsburgh firm, which meant starting in September, right after Labor Day. That gave us about 6 more weeks of summer together before my life would get significantly more complicated. 2 hours isn't that far, Marcus said one night when we were alone, curled up together on the couch in a way we definitely couldn't be if my mom was home. I could visit on weekends. You could, I agreed, playing with his fingers. But what happens long term? I'll be building a life there, you'll be here. Who says I'll be here? I've been applying to construction companies in Pittsburgh too. If you're going to be there, why wouldn't I look for work in the same city? The thought of Marcus following me to Pittsburgh sent a warm feeling through my chest. You'd do that. Jamie, I'm not interested in being apart from you. We just figured out what this is. I'm not ready to give it up. I kissed him, soft and slow, still amazed that I could do this now, that he was mine in ways that went beyond friendship or family. I love you, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Marcus pulled back slightly, his eyes wide. Yeah. Yeah, I felt vulnerable, suddenly exposed. Is that okay? Is that okay? He repeated, then laughed. Jamie, I've been in love with you for weeks, I just didn't think I should say it. Why not? Because it felt like too much too soon, because we're already dealing with enough complicated feelings, because, he stopped, cupping my face in his hands, because I was scared you didn't feel the same way. I feel the same way, I assured him, very much the same way. We spent the rest of that night talking about the future, about what it would look like if we both ended up in Pittsburgh, about how we'd navigate the secret of our relationship, about whether we'd ever be able to tell anyone the truth. I hate lying to your mom, Marcus admitted. She's been so good to me, it feels wrong to lie to her about this. I know, but what's the alternative? Hey mom, you know how you got me a brother? Well, funny story, we're dating now. Marcus laughed despite himself. When you put it that way. We'll figure it out, I said. Maybe someday we can tell her, when we're sure this is real and lasting. It is real, Marcus said seriously, at least for me. For me too. But the secrecy weighed on me more than I wanted to admit. Every time my mom smiled at us over dinner, talking about how happy she was that we'd become such good friends, I felt a stab of guilt. Every time I had to stop myself from touching Marcus the way I wanted to, from looking at him the way I wanted to, it felt like I was living a double life. And then, 3 weeks after Marcus and I officially became a couple, everything changed. My mom came home from work early one Tuesday afternoon. Marcus and I were in the living room and I was sitting on his lap, his arms around my waist, kissing him in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. We didn't hear her car, didn't hear the front door open, didn't notice anything until she cleared her throat and we sprang apart like we'd been electrocuted. Mom, I said, my voice high and panicked. This isn't, we were just. But I couldn't finish either sentence because there was no explanation that would make this okay. My mom stood frozen in the doorway, her purse still hanging from her shoulder, her face cycling through shock, confusion, and something that looked like horror. What is going on? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus and I looked at each other, and I could see my own panic reflected in his eyes. We can explain, Marcus started. I certainly hope you can, Mom said, her voice getting stronger, angrier, because from where I'm standing it looks like my sons are, she broke off, shaking her head. No, no, this can't be happening. Mom, please let us explain, I pleaded. Explain what, Jamie? Explain why you're kissing your brother. There's no explanation that makes that okay. He's not my brother, I said, the words coming out more forcefully than I intended. Not really. We didn't grow up together, we barely share any DNA, we're two adults who happen to meet under unusual circumstances. You share a father. A father neither of us really knew. I was standing now, my hands clenched into fists. Mom, I know how this looks, I know it's not conventional, but we didn't plan this, we didn't want this, it just happened. Things like this don't just happen, Jamie, you make choices, and you both chose to cross a line that should never be crossed. Marcus stood up, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Mrs. Chen, I understand you're upset, I understand this is a shock, but I love your son and he loves me, that's real regardless of the circumstances that brought us together. Love, Mom laughed, a harsh sound. You think this is love? This is, she trailed off, looking between us. How long has this been going on? A few weeks, I admitted quietly. A few weeks? She sat down heavily on the armchair, looking suddenly exhausted. Under my roof, while I worked to provide for both of you, while I welcomed you into this family, Marcus. I know, Marcus said, and I'm grateful for everything you've done for me, but my feelings for Jamie, they're not something I can control. I tried, we both tried. Not hard enough, apparently. She looked at me and the disappointment in her eyes was worse than any anger could have been. I thought I raised you better than this, Jamie. You did raise me better, I said, my voice cracking. You raised me to be honest, to follow my heart, to not apologize for who I am or who I love. That's exactly what I'm doing. This is different. How is this different from when I came out to you? You supported me then, you said love was love. Because you weren't in love with your brother. The word hung in the air, damning and final. He's not my brother, I said again, but even I could hear how weak it sounded now. Mom stood up. I need time to process this. Marcus, I think it would be best if you found somewhere else to stay. Mom, no, I started. I'm not kicking him out permanently, she interrupted. I just need some space, some time to think, surely you can understand that. Marcus nodded, his expression carefully neutral. I understand, I'll pack my things. Marcus, I said, reaching for him, but he pulled away gently. It's okay, Jamie, your mom needs time, we all do. I watched him climb the stairs to his room, feeling like everything was falling apart. Mom, I tried again, please don't do this. She looked at me with tired eyes. I'm going to my room, I'll come out when I'm ready to talk about this rationally. In the meantime, I suggest you think very hard about what you're doing and what it's going to cost you. She left me standing in the living room, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Marcus packed quickly. I stood in the doorway of his room, watching him fold clothes into his duffel bag with military precision. Where will you go? I asked. There's a motel on Route 22. I'll stay there until I figure something else out. This is my fault. I should have been more careful. We should have been more careful. He stopped packing and looked at me. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself. We both knew the risks. But I didn't really believe we'd get caught. That was naive of us. He zipped up his bag. But what's done is done. Now we have to deal with it. What do we do? Marcus sat down on the edge of the bed and I sat next to him, our shoulders touching. We give your mom space like she asked, we let her process, and then we talk to her, try to make her understand. You think she'll ever understand? I don't know, but I do know that I'm not giving you up, not unless you want me to. I don't, I said quickly, I don't want that at all. He kissed me, soft and sweet, and for a moment everything else faded away. But then we heard my mom's door open downstairs and we pulled apart. I should go, Marcus said. I walked him out to his truck, helped him load his bag, and watched him drive away, feeling like a part of me was leaving with him. My mom didn't come out of her room for the rest of the day. I tried knocking once, asking if she wanted dinner, but she just said she wasn't hungry. I texted Marcus that night, "Are you okay?" Marcus, "Yeah, motel is depressing, but it's fine. How are you?" Me, "Been better, mom still won't talk to me." Marcus, "Give her time, she'll come around." Me, "I hope you're right." The next morning I found my mom in the kitchen making coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Can we talk?" I asked. She nodded, pouring 2 cups and sitting down at the table. I sat across from her, my hands wrapped around the warm mug. "I'm sorry," I started. "I'm sorry for lying to you. I'm sorry for doing this under your roof without telling you. That wasn't fair." "No, it wasn't." She took a sip of her coffee. "I've been up all night trying to understand this, Jamie, trying to find a way to make it make sense, but I can't. I know it's unconventional. It's more than unconventional, it's taboo. It's something that most people would find deeply disturbing. And I hate that I feel that way because I love you and I want you to be happy, but I also can't just accept this." "Why not?" I asked, my voice rising despite my attempt to stay calm. "You accepted me being gay, you accepted that without hesitation. Why is this different?" "Because being gay is natural, Jamie, it's part of who you are. She gestured between us as if Marcus was still there. "This is a choice to pursue a relationship with someone you're related to. We barely share any DNA, we didn't grow up together. In every meaningful way except biology, we're just 2 people who met and fell in love. But the biology matters. It matters legally, it matters socially, it matters ethically. Does it matter morally?" I challenged. "Are Marcus and I hurting anyone? Are we doing anything wrong besides breaking a social norm?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "That's the problem, Jamie, I don't know. My gut tells me this is wrong, but I also see how you light up when you talk about him. I see how he looks at you, and I don't know how to reconcile those 2 things." "Then don't," I said. "Don't try to reconcile them right now, just give us a chance, get to know us as a couple, see that what we have is real and good even if it's complicated." "I need time," she said again, "more time than one night." "How much time?" "I don't know, but in the meantime, I think it's best if Marcus stays somewhere else." "Mom." "I'm not forbidding you from seeing him," she interrupted. "I'm not going to try to control your life, you're an adult, but I need my home to be a place where I feel comfortable, and right now, with this situation, I don't." It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it also wasn't the worst-case scenario. She wasn't disowning me, she wasn't cutting me off, she was just asking for space. "Okay," I said, "I understand." The next few weeks were difficult. Marcus stayed at the motel and started looking for an apartment. I spent most of my time with him there, only coming home to sleep and occasionally see my mom, who remained distant and confused. "I'm trying, Jamie," she told me one night over a stilted dinner. "I'm really trying to understand, But every time I think I'm making progress, I remember that you're brothers and it all falls apart again. We're not really brothers, I said for what felt like the 100th time. You are in every way that matters to me. We were at an impasse and I didn't know how to break through it. My start date at the Pittsburgh firm was rapidly approaching, which added another layer of stress to an already tense situation. Marcus had landed a job with a construction company in Pittsburgh too, and we'd started looking at apartments we could afford if we split the rent. Should we get a one-bedroom or two? Marcus asked one evening as we scrolled through listings on his laptop. What's more practical? 2 bedrooms would give us plausible deniability if anyone asks. We could say we're roommates. Is that what we're going to do? I asked. Keep lying, keep pretending. Marcus closed the laptop. I don't know, what's the alternative? We tell everyone we're half-brothers in a relationship and deal with the consequences. Would the consequences really be that bad? Jamie, we could face social ostracism, potential legal issues depending on how different jurisdictions view this, not to mention the impact on our jobs, our families. My mom is my only family, and she already knows. I have cousins, aunts, uncles, people who would never understand this. I leaned back against the motel's thin pillows, so we're just going to live a lie forever. Not forever, just until we figure out a better solution. But what was the better solution? I couldn't see one. 2 weeks before I was set to start my new job, my mom asked if we could meet at a coffee shop in town, just the two of us. I arrived early, nervous, and ordered us both drinks. When she came in, she looked better than she had in weeks, more rested, more centered. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sitting down across from me. Of course. I've been seeing a therapist, she said without preamble. Someone who specializes in family dynamics and complicated situations. I needed an objective perspective on all of this. What did they say? A lot of things, but mostly they helped me separate my gut reaction from rational thought. They helped me see that my discomfort comes largely from societal conditioning, not from any actual harm you and Marcus are causing. My heart started beating faster, so you. I don't fully understand it, she said. And I don't know if I ever will, but I also recognize that you're an adult, Marcus is an adult, and you're both making conscious, consensual choices about your relationship. It's not my place to stand in the way of that. Mom, I'm not saying I'm completely comfortable with it, she continued. But I'm saying I'm willing to try, I'm willing to get to know you two as a couple, as strange as that sounds, because at the end of the day, you're my son and I love you, that has to come first. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. There are conditions, she added. I need you both to be responsible about this. I need you to understand the potential consequences and be prepared for them. And I need you to be discreet, at least for now. I'm not ready to explain this situation to my friends or extended family. We can do that, I said quickly. We've already been discreet. I know you have, and I appreciate it. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I also want you to know that Marcus is welcome back in the house. If he wants to stay until you both move to Pittsburgh, that's fine. Really? Really, with boundaries, of course, separate rooms. No, she paused, looking uncomfortable. No overt displays of affection where I have to see them. We can definitely do that. When I told Marcus later that day, he looked relieved and amazed in equal measure. She's really okay with this. She's trying to be okay with this, that's more than I expected. He pulled me into a hug and I breathed in the familiar scent of him, feeling like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. Marcus moved back into the house the next day, and while things were still slightly awkward, they were better than they had been. My mom made an effort to talk to Marcus normally, to treat him like she had before she found out about us. And Marcus, to his credit, was patient and respectful, never pushing boundaries. We spent our last 2 weeks in town preparing for the move to Pittsburgh. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, close enough to both our jobs that we could manage with one car if needed. We packed our belongings, said goodbye to the few friends I had left in town, and tried not to think too hard about the fact that we were moving in together as a secret couple. The night before we left, my mom took us both out to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. I know this hasn't been easy, she said over appetizers. for any of us, but I'm proud of how you've both handled it, and I'm excited to see what Pittsburgh holds for you. Thanks, Mom, I said, for everything, for understanding or at least trying to. You're my son, she said simply. That doesn't change no matter what. She turned to Marcus. And you're my family too, Marcus, maybe not in the way I originally imagined, but family nonetheless, I hope you know that. Marcus looked genuinely moved. I do know that, thank you. The move to Pittsburgh was surprisingly smooth. We got our keys on a Friday, spent the weekend unpacking, and by Monday morning we were both ready to start our new jobs. My first day at the design firm was exciting and overwhelming. I met my team, got my workstation set up, and dove into my first project, rebranding a local restaurant chain. By the time I got home that evening, I was exhausted but exhilarated. Marcus got home an hour later, covered in construction dust but smiling. How was your first day? I asked, handing him a beer. Good, the crew is solid, the pay is better than Baltimore, and the project we're working on is interesting. How about you? Amazing, I think I'm really going to like it there. We clinked our bottles together, toasting to new beginnings. Living together was an adjustment. We had to figure out who did which chores, how to split bills, whose turn it was to buy groceries. But we also got to fall asleep next to each other every night, got to wake up together, got to build a life together in a way we never could have under my mom's roof. We were careful in public. We introduced ourselves as roommates to neighbors. At work, we never mentioned each other beyond casual references to my roommate. We maintained the fiction because it was easier than the truth. But in private, in the sanctuary of our apartment, we could be ourselves. We could kiss in the kitchen while cooking dinner. We could curl up on the couch together without worrying about who might see. We could talk about the future in concrete terms instead of abstract possibilities. Do you think we'll ever be able to tell people the truth? I asked one night, lying in bed with Marcus's arm around me. Maybe someday, he said, when we're more established in our careers, when we have a strong enough support system that we can weather the potential backlash. Or maybe we never tell anyone. Maybe we just live our lives as roommates who happen to be very close. Would you be okay with that? I thought about it. I don't know. Part of me hates the secrecy, but another part of me thinks maybe it's nobody's business but ours. We don't have to decide now, Marcus said, kissing the top of my head. We have time to figure it out. 3 months into our new life in Pittsburgh, we'd settled into a comfortable routine. Work was going well for both of us. I'd already been given more responsibility at the firm, working on bigger projects with more autonomy. Marcus had been promoted to crew lead on his construction site. We'd also made some friends. There was a couple in our apartment building, Josh and Sarah, who we'd sometimes have over for dinner or drinks. Through work, I'd befriended another designer named Maya who was close to my age. Marcus had connected with some guys on his crew who he'd occasionally grab beers with after work. But all these friendships came with an underlying tension. We could never fully relax, never fully be ourselves. When Josh and Sarah asked about our dating lives, we'd make vague references to not having time for relationships. When Maya tried to set me up with her gay cousin, I had to politely decline without being able to explain why. This is exhausting, I told Marcus one evening after I'd spent an hour making excuses to Maya about why I wasn't interested in meeting her cousin. I know, but what's the alternative? We could tell people, some people at least. Maya is pretty open-minded. Josh and Sarah are progressive. Maybe they'd understand. Marcus looked skeptical. Or maybe they'd be disgusted and never speak to us again. Maybe they'd tell other people and it would spread, and suddenly everyone at your work would know, and... Okay, I get it, I sighed. It's just hard, having to hide all the time. I know, he pulled me close, but we have each other, that has to be enough. And most of the time, it was, but there were moments when the secrecy felt suffocating. Like when we went to a gay bar one night and had to pretend we weren't together because someone from my office might be there. Or when Marcus's crew invited him to a 4th of July barbecue and he had to bring me as his roommate instead of his boyfriend. 4 months in, we had our first real fight about it. We'd been invited to Josh and Sarah's wedding, just the ceremony and reception, nothing huge, but it was still a significant event, the invitation said, and guest. I think we should go separately, Marcus said when I brought it up. Why? Because if we both show up as each other's plus ones, people are going to ask questions. So let them ask questions, we'll say we're friends, roommates, whatever. And when they ask why we don't bring dates, why two straight guys who are roommates are each other's plus ones, we'll figure it out. Jamie, this is risky, too risky. Everything about our relationship is risky, I snapped. We're living a lie, Marcus, every single day, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of pretending we're just roommates. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of it too, he said, his voice rising to match mine. But what do you want me to do? You want me to stand up at this wedding and announce to everyone that we're half-brothers in a relationship? How do you think that's going to go? I don't know, but I know I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending you're nothing more than a friend. We stared at each other, both breathing hard, the air between us crackling with tension and frustration. I love you, Marcus finally said, his voice breaking. But I also don't know how to make this work. I don't know how to give you what you want without risking everything we've built. What if what we've built isn't sustainable? I asked quietly. What if living this lie is just going to make us miserable in the long run? Then what's the alternative? I didn't have an answer. We ended up skipping the wedding entirely, using work as an excuse because neither of us could figure out how to navigate it. That night, lying in bed with Marcus's arms around me, I wondered if my mom had been right all along. If this relationship, no matter how much we loved each other, was just too complicated to work. The tension from our fight lingered for days. We were polite to each other, affectionate even, but there was a heaviness between us that hadn't been there before. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects. Marcus did the same, picking up overtime shifts that had him coming home exhausted and dirty every night. We were avoiding the conversation we needed to have. It was my mom who finally forced the issue. She called one evening when I was alone in the apartment, Marcus still at work. "How are things?" she asked, and something in her tone told me she already knew the answer. "Fine," I lied. "Jamie." I sighed. "Not great actually. Marcus and I are struggling." "Struggling how?" "With the secrecy mostly, with having to hide who we are all the time. It's wearing on both of us." She was quiet for a moment. "I know this isn't easy, and I know I didn't make it easier at first, but have you considered that maybe this is a sign?" "A sign of what?" "That maybe this relationship, as much as you care for each other, isn't sustainable." "Mom, hear me out," she interrupted gently. "I've accepted what you and Marcus have, I've tried to support it, but I also see how much stress it's causing you both. The lying, the hiding, the constant fear of being found out. Is that really how you want to live?" "No," I admitted, "but I also don't want to lose him." "Sometimes love isn't enough, honey. Sometimes the circumstances make it impossible for a relationship to work, no matter how much two people care about each other." Her words stung because part of me knew she was right, but another part of me rebelled against the idea that Marcus and I couldn't make this work. "I'm not ready to give up on him," I said. "I'm not asking you to give up. I'm asking you to be realistic about what you're signing up for. A lifetime of secrecy, of never being able to fully share your relationship with others, of potentially facing serious legal or social consequences if the truth comes out." "I know it's complicated." "It's more than complicated, Jamie. It's potentially devastating, and I just want you to go into this with your eyes open." When Marcus got home that night, I told him about the conversation with my mom. "She thinks we should break up," I said. "Do you think we should break up?" "I don't know." I sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "I love you, Marcus. I love being with you, but I also don't know if I can handle living like this long term." He sat down next to me, taking my hand. "So what do we do?" "I think we need to make a choice. Either we find a way to be more open about our relationship, consequences be damned, or we accept that maybe this isn't sustainable." "What would being more open look like?" "I don't know. Maybe we tell a few trusted friends the truth. Maybe we stop hiding so much. Maybe we accept that some people won't understand, but we do it anyway." "That's scary." "I know, but so is this. So is lying all the time and pretending we're something we're not." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "Okay," he finally said. "Okay. Let's tell someone. Let's start small. Pick one person we trust and tell them the truth, see how it goes. Who? We debated for a while and eventually settled on Maya, my coworker. She was openly bisexual herself, had always been supportive and non-judgmental, and I genuinely considered her a friend. If anyone's going to understand, it'll be her, I said. And if she doesn't, then we'll deal with it, but we have to try. The next day, I asked Maya if she wanted to grab lunch. We went to a small cafe near our office, and over sandwiches, I worked up the courage to tell her. There's something I need to tell you, I started, about why I haven't been interested in dating. Okay, she said, her expression curious but patient. I'm seeing someone I care about a lot, but it's complicated. Complicated how? I took a deep breath. The guy I'm with, Marcus, he's my roommate, but he's also my half-brother. Maya's eyebrows shot up. Your half-brother? We didn't grow up together, I rushed to explain. We met as adults. We didn't even know each other existed until last summer. We developed feelings for each other before we really thought of ourselves as family. She set down her sandwich, processing. Okay, wow, that's definitely complicated. I know, and I understand if you think it's wrong or weird or... I don't think it's wrong, she interrupted. I mean, it's definitely unusual, but you didn't grow up together, right? You don't have that sibling dynamic. Not at all, we're basically just two people who happen to share some DNA. Then honestly, I don't see the problem. It's not conventional, sure, but you're both adults making consensual choices. Who am I to judge? The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. Really? Really? She smiled. I mean, I can see why you've been keeping it quiet. Not everyone is going to be as understanding, but you deserve to be happy, Jamie, and if Marcus makes you happy, then I support it. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, you have no idea how much that means. So when do I get to officially meet him as your boyfriend instead of just your roommate? Telling Maya changed something fundamental. For the first time since Marcus and I had gotten together, I had someone I could talk to about our relationship, someone who knew the truth and didn't judge us for it. She really was okay with it, Marcus asked that night, still skeptical. More than okay, she wants to meet you properly as my boyfriend. That's wow. I know. We invited Maya over for dinner the following weekend. She brought wine and immediately hit it off with Marcus, talking about everything from movies to politics to the best food trucks in Pittsburgh. You guys are really good together, she told us as she was leaving. I can see why you're willing to fight for this. After she left, Marcus pulled me into a kiss. That felt good, being able to be ourselves around someone. It did, didn't it? Encouraged by Maya's acceptance, we decided to tell one more person, Josh, our neighbor. Sarah was a bit more conservative, so we thought Josh might be a safer bet. We invited him over for beers one evening when Sarah was out of town. After some small talk, Marcus and I exchanged glances and I dove in. Josh, there's something we want to tell you about our relationship. He looked between us and I could see the moment realization dawned. You're together, like together. Yeah, Marcus said, we are. That's great, man. I mean, I kind of suspected. You guys have this energy together, you know, but I didn't want to assume. He paused. Wait, is this why you've been weird about dating questions? Partially, I said, but there's more. Marcus is also my half-brother. Josh's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. You're what? We explained the whole story, how we met, how we fell for each other, why we'd been keeping it secret. When we finished, Josh was quiet for a long moment. Okay, he finally said, I'll be honest, that's going to take me a minute to process. My heart sank, Josh. But, he continued, you're both good guys and you clearly care about each other, so while it's definitely not something I've encountered before, I'm not going to judge you for it. Really? Really, though I should warn you, Sarah might take it harder. She's more traditional about family stuff. We don't have to tell Sarah, Marcus said quickly. No, but you should probably be prepared in case she figures it out. She's pretty perceptive. Over the next few months, we gradually told a few more people. Marcus came out to a couple guys on his crew, though he left out the part about us being related. I told another coworker who'd become a good friend. Each time we told someone, it got a little easier, and most people, to our surprise, were more accepting than we'd feared. They didn't always fully understand, but they respected that we were adults making our own choices. But we still kept the full truth from most people. At work functions, we were still just roommates. When Marcus's extended family called, he never mentioned me as anything more than his roommate. We maintained the fiction because completely coming out seemed too risky. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than hiding entirely. 6 months into living in Pittsburgh, Marcus surprised me with a weekend trip to New York. We stayed in a small hotel in the West Village, wandered through galleries and museums, ate at amazing restaurants. "This is nice," I said as we walked hand in hand through Washington Square Park, being somewhere no one knows us. "It is," Marcus agreed, though I've been thinking. About. About what it would be like if we could do this everywhere, hold hands wherever we want, introduce each other as boyfriends without hesitation. That sounds amazing. I want that for us, Jamie. I want us to have a life where we don't have to hide. So do I, but I don't know how to get there from here. He stopped walking, turning to face me. Maybe we don't have to have all the answers right now. Maybe we just keep taking small steps, keep telling people we trust, keep building a support network. Eventually, we might reach a point where we can be fully open. You really think so? I have to believe so, otherwise what's the point? That night, lying in our hotel bed with the sounds of the city drifting up from the street below, Marcus asked me something he'd never asked before. If you could go back knowing everything you know now about how complicated this would be, would you still choose this? Would you still choose me? I didn't have to think about my answer. Yes, every time yes. Even with all the lying, all the hiding, all the stress. Even with all of that, because having you in my life, loving you, being loved by you, that's worth more than any of the complications. He kissed me then, slow and deep, and I felt the truth of my words settle into my bones. It was coming up on a year since Marcus and I had officially gotten together when everything changed. I'd been at the firm for 10 months and had just been promoted to senior designer. It came with a raise, more responsibility, and an invitation to the company's annual retreat, a weekend at a resort in the Poconos where all the employees and their partners were invited. "You should come," I told Marcus, "as my partner." "To a work event, Jamie, that's risky." "I know, but I'm tired of going to these things alone. I'm tired of making excuses, and honestly, most people at the firm already suspect we're together. We might as well confirm it." "What about the brother thing?" "We don't have to tell them that part, we can just say we're partners, which is true." Marcus considered it. "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure." The retreat was beautiful, a sprawling resort with hiking trails, a lake, and cabins scattered throughout the property. I'd been assigned a cabin with one queen bed, which made it clear that the firm was perfectly fine with me bringing Marcus as my partner. Most of my coworkers were friendly and welcoming to Marcus. Maya, of course, already knew our situation and went out of her way to make him feel included. A few others raised eyebrows but didn't say anything. It was on the second night during a bonfire where everyone was drinking and relaxing that my boss, Richard, sat down next to me. "Your boyfriend seems like a great guy," he said. "He is," I said, feeling a warm glow that had nothing to do with the fire or the beer. "How long have you two been together?" "About a year." "That's great, it's nice to see you happy, Jamie. You light up when you talk about him." "Thanks, Richard. Can I ask you something, though, and feel free to tell me to mind my own business?" My stomach tightened. "Sure. Is there a particular reason you haven't mentioned him before? I mean, we're a pretty LGBT-friendly company. You didn't have to keep your relationship secret." I took a long drink of my beer, debating how much to say. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" Maybe it was the beer, maybe it was the fire and the stars and the sense of camaraderie that had built up over the weekend. Maybe I was just tired of lying. "Marcus is my half-brother," I said quietly. Richard's expression didn't change for a long moment. "Your half-brother?" "We didn't grow up together, we met as adults last year. We didn't know each other existed until then." "And you fell in love?" "Yeah." "That is complicated," Richard said, but his tone wasn't judgmental, it was thoughtful. "Does anyone else know?" "A few close friends, my mom, that's about it." "Are you planning to tell more people?" I don't know, I want to be open about our relationship, but the brother thing complicates it. It does, Richard agreed. Though I have to say, in the grand scheme of HR nightmares I've dealt with, this barely registers. You're both adults. You didn't grow up together. You're not in a position where one has power over the other. Ethically, I don't see an issue. Really? Really, socially sure, some people are going to find it weird, but that's their problem, not yours. He clapped me on the shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you're brave for pursuing a relationship in such complicated circumstances, and I think Marcus is lucky to have you. The acceptance from my boss, someone I respected and admired, meant more than I could express. When I told Marcus later that night, lying in our cabin bed, he was amazed. You told your boss, and he was okay with it. More than okay, he was supportive. Maybe people are more understanding than we give them credit for. Maybe. Do you think, Marcus trailed off, then started again, do you think we could tell more people, maybe even go public with it? What do you mean public? I mean stop hiding, tell our friends, our coworkers, everyone, let them know we're together. We don't have to lead with the brother thing, but we don't hide it if someone asks. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. That's a big step. I know, but I'm ready to take it if you are. I'm tired of living in the shadows, Jamie. I want to be able to call you my boyfriend in public. I want to hold your hand without worrying who might see. I want us to have a normal life. Our life will never be completely normal. Normal enough then. I thought about it, about what it would mean to stop hiding, about the potential consequences but also the potential freedom. Okay, I said, let's do it. We started with social media. It felt safer somehow, less direct than telling people face to face. I posted a photo of Marcus and me from the retreat, his arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling at the camera. The caption was simple, grateful for this guy. The responses were immediate and varied. Maya and Josh commented with heart emojis. Several coworkers liked it. A few people I'd gone to college with commented variations of "I knew it" or "You two are adorable." Marcus posted the same photo with the caption, "Best year of my life." His responses were similar, mostly positive. A few people expressing surprise but no outright negativity. That wasn't so bad, I said, refreshing my notifications for the 10th time. Not so far, Marcus agreed, though we still haven't addressed the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room was how we'd met. So far, we'd just come out as a couple. We hadn't mentioned the family connection. Do we need to address it? I asked. Can't we just let people assume we met normally? We could, but it feels like we're still lying, just in a different way. He had a point. A few days later, someone from my college, a guy named Derek who I'd been friendly with but not particularly close to, sent me a direct message. Derek, hey man, saw your post. Happy for you. How did you and Marcus meet? He doesn't look familiar from school. I stared at the message, debating how to respond. This was it, the moment where I could either lie or tell the truth. I chose the truth. Me, thanks, it's actually a weird story. Marcus is my half-brother. We met last year when he reached out after finding out we existed. We didn't grow up together or anything, and we developed feelings for each other as adults. The 3 dots indicating he was typing appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Derek, wow, that is quite a story. I'm not going to lie, it's definitely unusual. But you both seem happy, so who am I to judge? Good luck with everything, man. One response didn't set a pattern, but it was encouraging. Over the next few weeks, more people asked how we met. Each time I told them the truth. And while reactions varied, some people were immediately accepting, others were visibly uncomfortable, a few stopped talking to me altogether, most were somewhere in the middle. Curious, sometimes confused, but not outright hostile. I think people are more okay with this than we expected, Marcus said one night after I'd had a long phone conversation with an old friend from college who'd ultimately been supportive. Some people are, but not everyone. Marcus's aunt, one of the relatives he'd been close to in Baltimore, had reached out after seeing his post. The conversation hadn't gone well. She'd told him she was disappointed, that what he was doing was wrong, that his mother would have been ashamed. It had hurt him deeply, and I'd held him while he processed the rejection. We knew this wouldn't be easy, I reminded him. We knew some people wouldn't understand. I know, it just sucks when it's someone you care about. It does, but we have each other, and we have people who support us. Is that enough? It has to be. My mom, for her part, had continued to evolve in her acceptance. When we visited her for Thanksgiving, she'd set the table for three and introduced Marcus to her neighbors as my son's partner. Thank you, I told her later, helping with dishes. For what? For trying, for accepting us even though it's hard for you. She put down the dish she was washing and turned to face me. You're my son, Jamie. I don't have to fully understand your relationship to support you being happy. I've watched you over the past year and I've seen how much Marcus means to you. That matters more than my discomfort. As we approached the one-year anniversary of our first kiss, Marcus and I started talking seriously about the future. What do you want? He asked one night. Long term, I mean. With you. With life, with us, with everything. I thought about it. I want to keep growing in my career, maybe start my own design firm someday. I want to travel more, see places we've only talked about. I want. What? I want a life with you, whatever that looks like. Marriage. The word hung in the air between us. We'd never talked about marriage before. Is that even legal for us? I asked. I looked it up. In Pennsylvania, first cousins can marry. Half-siblings is more complicated, but there's no explicit law against it for people who didn't grow up together. It's a gray area. Would you want to get married, I mean? Eventually, yeah, would you? I think so, though I never thought about getting married to someone I can't tell people is my half-brother. We could tell people, we have been telling people. True, it's just, marriage feels like such a public declaration. Like we'd be forcing everyone to confront our relationship in a way they haven't had to yet. Isn't that the point, to be public about it, to stop hiding? You're right, I'm just scared, I guess. Marcus pulled me close. I'm scared too, but I'm also excited. I want to build a life with you, Jamie, a real life, not one we have to hide. 6 months later, on a warm spring day, Marcus proposed. We were hiking in a state park, one of our favorite weekend activities, when he stopped at a scenic overlook. I've been thinking about what you said, he began, about how marriage is a public declaration, about how it forces people to confront our relationship. Okay. And I think that's exactly what we should do. We've spent too long worrying about what other people think. I don't want to hide anymore, Jamie. I want to marry you. I want to stand up in front of everyone we know and declare that you're the person I choose, complications and all. He pulled out a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal two simple silver bands. Will you marry me? I was crying before I could answer. Yes, yes, of course, yes. He slipped one ring on my finger and I slipped the other on his, and we kissed there on the overlook with the whole world spread out beneath us. Planning the wedding was complicated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Who would we invite? How would we explain our relationship to people who didn't already know? Where could we even get married? We could do a small ceremony, Marcus suggested. Just close friends and family, people who already know and accept us. Or we could do a bigger wedding and let everyone else deal with their feelings about it, I countered. You want to make a statement? Don't you? We've spent all this time coming out to people individually. Maybe it's time to just come out to everyone at once. We settled on a medium-sized wedding at a vineyard outside Pittsburgh. We invited about 75 people, my mom, Marcus's extended family, those who were still speaking to him, our friends from Pittsburgh, some of my college friends, and a few coworkers. The invitations were simple. Marcus Williams and Jamie Chen request the honor of your presence at their wedding. We included a note that explained our relationship briefly. Marcus and Jamie met as adults after discovering they were half-siblings. They fell in love and are excited to celebrate their commitment with the people they care about most. Some people declined immediately. Marcus's aunt sent a curt response saying she couldn't attend. A few of my extended relatives said no without explanation. But most people accepted, and many included notes saying they were happy for us, that they supported us, that they couldn't wait to celebrate with us. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of planning. We tried to keep things relatively simple, but there were still 1,000 decisions to make. Flowers, music, food, vows. I can't believe we're doing this, I said one night looking over our guest list. Getting cold feet. No, just amazed that we're at this point. A year and a half ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now we're getting married. Life's weird like that. The best kind of weird. The day of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful. I woke up in a hotel room with Maya, who'd agreed to be my person of honor, running around making sure everything was perfect. How are you feeling? She asked as I got dressed in my suit. Terrified, excited, like I might throw up. That's normal. You're about to stand up in front of everyone you know and commit to spending your life with someone. It's okay to be nervous. It's more than nerves, it's the fear that something will go wrong, that someone will object, that people will judge us. Jamie, look at me. She took my hands. You and Marcus love each other, that's real, that's valid. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to be here, but I think you'll be surprised. Most people just want to see two people who love each other be happy. She was right, of course. The ceremony was outdoors in the vineyard's garden. Chairs were set up in rows and an arch covered in flowers stood at the front. As I walked down the aisle with my mom, I saw Marcus waiting for me and my nerves disappeared. He looked amazing in his dark blue suit, his smile wide and genuine. Josh stood next to him as his person of honor, and when I reached the front, Marcus took my hands. Hi, he whispered. Hi, I whispered back. The officiant, a friend of Maya's who was licensed to perform ceremonies, began with a short speech about love and commitment. Then she addressed the elephant in the room. Marcus and Jamie's relationship is unconventional, she said. They came into each other's lives in unexpected ways, and their path to this moment has not been without challenges. But what I see when I look at them is two people who have chosen each other again and again despite the complications. Two people who have built a partnership based on love, respect, and genuine friendship. And that to me is what marriage is all about. There were murmurs of agreement from the crowd, and I felt tears prick my eyes. When it came time for vows, Marcus went first. Jamie, when I found those letters from our dad, when I learned you existed, I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I was just looking for family. But I found so much more than that. I found my best friend, my partner, the person who makes me want to be better every day. You've taught me that love doesn't always follow the rules, that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen in unexpected ways. I promise to love you, to support you, to be honest with you, and to never take our relationship for granted. I choose you today and every day. I was full on crying by the time he finished. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. Marcus, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You challenged every assumption I had about family, about relationships, about what was possible. Loving you has been the easiest and hardest thing I've ever done. Easy because you're the person I want to talk to at the end of every day, the person whose opinion I value most, the person who makes me laugh even when I want to be mad. Hard because we've had to fight for this relationship in ways most couples don't. But I would fight for you 1,000 times over. I would choose you 1,000 times over. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams, to hold you when things are hard, and to celebrate with you when things are good. I love you, and I can't wait to spend my life with you. When the officiant pronounced us married, the crowd erupted in applause. Marcus kissed me, dipping me dramatically, and I laughed against his lips. The reception was everything I'd hoped for. Good food, good music, people dancing and laughing and celebrating. My mom gave a toast that made everyone cry, talking about how she'd struggled to understand our relationship at first but had come to see how genuine our love was. Josh gave a toast about how he'd known from the first time he met us that there was something special between us, even before he knew the whole story. Maya gave a toast about the importance of loving boldly and being true to yourself, no matter what society says. And then Marcus and I danced our first dance as a married couple, swaying to an old love song while our friends and family watched. We did it, Marcus murmured in my ear. We did. No regrets. Not a single one. 5 years after our wedding, Marcus and I are sitting on the porch of the house we bought in a quiet neighborhood outside Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful spring evening and we're watching the sunset, beers in hand. Can you believe it's been 5 years? I ask. Barely, feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. So much has changed in those 5 years. I started my own design firm, something I'd always dreamed of. It's small but successful, and I love the freedom of being my own boss. Marcus went back to school part-time and got his architecture degree. He now works for a firm that specializes in sustainable building design, and he lights up when he talks about his projects. We've built a life together that feels normal most of the time. We have friends who know our story and accept us. We have neighbors who wave when they see us. We have careers we're proud of and a home we love. But it hasn't all been easy. We still face judgment sometimes. There are people who, upon learning how we met, become distant or uncomfortable. There are family members who still don't speak to us. We've had to develop thick skin and learn not to internalize other people's discomfort. We also decided not to have kids. It was a mutual decision, born partially from concerns about genetics but mostly from a desire to focus on each other and our careers. Some people have opinions about that too, but we've learned to let them have their opinions without letting it affect our happiness. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asks, echoing the question he asked me on our wedding day. All of this, how complicated it's been. Never, I say honestly, you. Not once. My phone buzzes with a text from my mom. She's planning to visit next weekend and wants to know if we'll be around for dinner. Mom wants to come up next weekend, I tell Marcus. Tell her yes, I'll make my famous lasagna. I smile, typing out a response. My mom and Marcus have a good relationship now. She still struggles sometimes with the specifics of our relationship, but she never makes us feel bad about it. She sees how happy we are, and that's what matters to her. You know what the best part is, Marcus says, pulling me close. We get to be ourselves, no more hiding, no more lying, just us living our life. That is pretty great. We sit in comfortable silence as the sun dips below the horizon. Inside the house, our life awaits: dishes to wash, a movie to watch, a bed to share. The ordinary, everyday moments that make up a life together. It's not the relationship anyone would have predicted for us. It's not conventional or traditional or easy to explain, but it's ours and it's real and it's filled with love. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Marcus stands up, offering me his hand. Come on, let's go inside, I want to show you something. What is it? The blueprints for that community center I've been working on. I think I finally got the design right and I want your opinion. I take his hand, letting him pull me to my feet. As we walk inside together, I think about how far we've come, from strangers to brothers to lovers to husbands, from secrecy to openness, from fear to confidence. It's been a journey unlike any other, and I wouldn't change a single step. The door closes behind us, and through the window I can see us, two figures moving around our kitchen, talking and laughing, completely at ease with each other. This is our story, complicated, unconventional, and absolutely worth it. This is our life, and it's exactly what we chose. The end. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking this video. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you.